Alright. It's been a little while. This one is going to be about usually what are called DMPCs or GMPCs. But it's just going to be more widely about like companions and having basically NPCs that come along with the party and participate in combats and stuff, whether controlled by the controlled by the game master or not. So both of the home games, what I'm going to call, that I play in, the Pearlmire campaign, Ugliest Man Alive, and the Foulmire mini campaign, all of those games have a good stock of DMPCs. Not really sure why. They just kind of do. And having DMPCs like that does have specific effects. So first, the big problem that can arise, and this isn't something that necessarily does happen in those games, but with DMPCs, occasionally, three completely different descriptors. What can happen is the DMPC can either overshadow the players or undermine them, or any combination of those things. For example, let's say in a hypothetical version, you've got one of your players is the only cleric. Everybody else is like either a high damage marshal or like a high damage like blaster wizard or something. Like that's the rest of the party. They're all just like, I'm gonna do damage, and you're playing the only cleric, and you've designed this cleric specifically to just be support and help people and help your party, like heal, do buffs, and then you get a DM, and the DM gives you an NPC that travels along with you. That's also a healing cleric, and they're just doing the same thing you're doing, and you're not controlling that cleric either. Like the DM is controlling it, so it kind of lessens the impact of you doing the healing and the buffing, because that other NPC is also doing it. So there's more than one source of it, so all the quote admiration or spotlight for your character doing those actions is not on your character anymore. And there's some selfish implications to that, but that's kind of how this works. Everybody designs a character to fulfill a certain role. Like, all the other characters are like doing big damage in really specific ways, and you're doing the healing. But now your healing is being undercut by another guy that's doing the healing. Like if you were to design two PCs that are kind of doing this, and you're like the Healing Brothers, something, you play into that, and that going in, but then this DMPC just shows up and starts taking your job. That's kind of the idea. Or, you make a fighter, and the DM sticks you with this fighter that's like a higher level than you, and is like doing a better job, and you're like, all right, I'll just be over here. And but even if something like that happens, like there's two fighters, there's still enough enemies to cut down. But like there's more than enough enemies to just kill when you've got two fighters. Like that's not that big of an issue. But the healer example, I think, is a bigger issue. So like that's kind of the biggest issue, like overshadowing the players and detracting from their big roles in the party. But another issue that can arise is, well, a simple issue, is clogging up combats. Because, the DM determines how difficult a combat's supposed to be. They allocate all the enemies and control the enemies and fight the party. But with a DMPC in the mix, they have to make that combat harder in some way, or they'll just steamroll it, especially because, like, thanks to this larger group. And also, with more characters in the combat, initiative gets all clogged up. And it can dip into that first section, even if the DM is very aware of these types of issues and doesn't want to overshadow the PCs. If it makes sense for, like, an NPC to, like, kill this enemy, and it would have been better for the players to more dramatically kill this enemy. But now the DMPC does it instead, because in-game, you know, it makes sense. Like, why would the NPC just hold off on killing this enemy just so the players can do it? That can kind of step on the players' toes, too. But I think clogging up the party, or clogging up initiative, is kind of a bigger issue. And it can also, this next issue that can kind of make it feel a bit weird, is it displaces some of the blame and responsibility that the party feels. This is especially true when the DMPCs are, like, higher level than the party. Because it's like, oh, we got these big tough guys, we're just kind of here. They're the real heroes, not us. And that can be difficult to rectify, especially, like, as long as those NPCs are higher level than you, than the party. It can be difficult to rectify that problem. There's other ways to do, like, when you have to do more narrative stuff, you got to do a little bit more heavy lifting to rectify that problem, and you can, but it's tricky. Because the players can sometimes feel like they're just following those NPCs around. And anytime a problem comes up, they ask the NPCs, like, hey, what should we do? Hey, what should we do? And you don't want that. So what a lot of players, or a lot of DMs, tend to do is they'll make NPC companions either lower level than you. They don't follow the same rules as player characters. They're just NPC sidekicks. And they have, like, simpler rules. Or they're cowards. They can't make decisions on their own. They have to rely on the players to make decisions. And that's a easy way to rectify that. Even if the NPCs are, like, higher level. They're just cowardly, and they've been skirting by, and now that the stronger-willed players are here, they can make all the decisions. Something like that. So there's some issues that can come up with DM NPCs, and even I was kind of guilty of this in the last Site 27 mission. I gave them an NPC that was kind of like a combination blaster, like ranged attacker, and he also had some healing capability. But I gave them this NPC for kind of like story reasons and to help them out a little bit, because I didn't give them, and they never asked for any healing potions of any kind, so they were very limited on healing. So I gave them this as a kind of like, here you go. Because otherwise they might have got fucked up by that boss at the end of that mission. They still they barely, well, no, they survived well enough, but they didn't come out of it too good. But that's the thing, DMPCs are tricky, and this isn't even talking about the idea of, like, DMPCs that are there so that the DM can be a player at the same time. That's a big problem. That's a whole separate issue. You know, where they're actively stealing spotlight from the players. That's a whole separate issue. So, yeah, that's kind of that. Just some quick thoughts. Just wanted to get a quick video recorded, because I've got a big list of video topics that I want to start knocking down. For a little while, I was thinking, like, I felt like I didn't have any topics to talk about, and then times when I wasn't able to record, I would write an idea down, and looking at this list, like, yeah, I totally forgot about all these ideas. So, good making lists. Making lists is good. Maybe I'll make a video about making lists.